Make Argentina great again. That's what it seems like. That's the new story. I don't quite understand how the Trump administration can put American first while selling and promoting Argentinian ground beef and beef products. I don't understand how RFK Jr. can make America healthy again when our food supply and our food source keeps getting further and further away from the source. It just doesn't make sense. Today we have Mike Callicrate on the show again. We love having him. He is an expert in the field. He's an expert in the ranching industry, and is going to bring a ton of information in regards to what the Trump administration is trying to do and how that's going to hurt the American rancher. So thank you for joining us today, Mike.
Yeah, happy to be here.
And Aaron, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, CNN, MSNBC, all the major corporate news outlets are reporting Trump's Argentina beef deal angers America's struggling farmers. Quote, "You're selling us out." So just this week, Trump cut a deal with the nation of Argentina and their new president, Milei, which many are calling a bailout for Argentina, which is a commitment by the Trump administration to purchase beef from Argentina following weeks of rising beef prices across the board. And it's an honor to have Mike here on because Mike is here in Colorado Springs with us. He owns Ranch Foods Direct. They just started home delivery, I think, this week. Is that right, Mike?
Next week.
Or next week. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. But Mike's on here specifically for his expertise on what is actually happening. Why should we be concerned with our country purchasing beef from Argentina when we have American cattle ranchers that are struggling right now? So, Mike, the story was that beef is becoming more expensive. Trump and his administration is kind of positioning this as we want to alleviate the American consumer wallet and basically make this cheaper. So if we import beef from Argentina, that's going to make beef more affordable. And it looked like the administration was attempting to position it that way. But obviously, knowing you and knowing what's going on here domestically, it didn't go well for me, and it definitely didn't go well for some of the beef spokespeople in the industry. Can you tell me what exactly happened and what is the feeling amongst American ranchers today?
Well, the first thing is what the Trump administration is ignoring is the whole reason that we have lost half our ranchers and the reason that we've liquidated 10 million beef cows in our country. And for the last 40 or more years, we have had a real monopoly running our industry, the beef industry and the cattle industry. So we've got ranchers out there that their expertise is how do you turn grass into cattle? How do you create wealth from the land? And these are the most critical people. These are the stewards of our land, the caretakers of our livestock, the ones that provide the good husbandry to the animals that we depend on to eat. And yet we've allowed a meat packing cartel monopoly to essentially drive them out of business with low prices for the last 40 years. And the kids don't want to come back because of what the parents have been through in the struggle to survive in the ranching industry with low income and or far less income than they need to sustain the operations.
Can I stop you there, Mike? Because this is not an anti-Trump podcast or show. I think rural America, when I read the CNN article, voted for Trump 98%, the most successful Republican president in rural America in recorded history. So this is definitely not an anti-Trump sentiment. But if you're an America First president, and I'm hearing Mike say that the reason why the prices are high is because we've allowed an oligopoly power in control of the beefing industry. If he really wanted to make America first, Mike, wouldn't he be addressing this oligopoly? And wouldn't he be restructuring the beef industry to favor the American rancher rather than importing cheap beef from Argentina?
Yeah, that's what's so insulting about it is rural America did support this president. And now to have him come out and say, hey, look, we just got to lower beef prices. That is not the answer to us ever becoming self-sustaining again.
You think he's ignorant to this fact, or do you think?
Yes, I do. He's from a concrete jungle. I mean, he doesn't spend any time on ranches. He doesn't spend any time in the West understanding rural America and its importance as far as wealth creation, for the American economy. He doesn't understand it. And he's got advisors that don't understand it either. And a lot of the organizations that we depend on, like the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, that claim to represent ranchers' interest in Washington, have not. They have represented the oligopoly, as you just described, the beef monopoly, the cartel over the interests of these ranchers. And so, just at the point when the rancher is able to start paying his bills, we finally got our share of the consumer dollar back up a little bit from where it was. Then we're going to put our foot on the neck of the rancher, and to do it with Argentine beef. And I guarantee you, the people in Argentina, the ranchers in Argentina, are going to be selling below cost of production because they're dealing with the same meat packers we are here in the United States, just like imports from Australia. Those are the same meat packers: JBS, Cargill, Marfrig, Minerva. These are the biggest meat packers in the world that search the world for the hungriest people that'll work the cheapest and produce the cheapest of everything, and then they buy it and they sell it in the highest consuming markets, which is the United States. And so when consumers pay more for beef, a supply and demand market would dictate that we would raise more livestock, more cattle. That is not happening because ranchers are in so much financial trouble and their bankers are so demanding of getting these notes paid that they're selling the heifer rather than turning her into a cow. So we're not going to be able to increase our herd and feed America. We're a net food importing nation. Now think about that for a minute and how vulnerable we are.
National security.
It's a literal starvation, honestly, literal starvation. And you don't just rebuild the beef herd. You don't just rebuild rural America overnight. It takes 3 years. Once you've decided to keep a heifer, it takes 3 years to get a steak on the plate or a burger on the bun. This needs strategic planning, which the administration is ignoring. We've got to have a better plan than what the Secretary of Agriculture came out with yesterday. She's talking about, what we might do for grazing federal lands and putting a product, getting rid of the fraudulent product of the USA label that goes on imported beef. Just a few things, but nobody is talking about the concentration and consolidation of big meat packing and big retail and how that's hurting both producers and consumers. Why doesn't the president talk about that? It's because I don't think he really understands it.
I think that there's a lot of short-sightedness in this administration when it comes to this issue. They're looking at the affordability of America, and that's been like the front kind of blaring issue for, I guess, the American population for so long. And it's all about how do we make it affordable? And these are short-term solutions that are going to hurt us in the long run because it's going to hurt middle America, right? It's going to hurt the ranchers. It's going to hurt the Midwest. It's going to hurt Wyoming. And these short-sighted fixes to help the American public in the affordability crisis really is going to drive down our ability to produce in this country. And we've seen this happen numerous times. Not to mention, there's a huge health component to the fact that when we're eating poorly, we're draining the economy. And that's a crisis that I don't think is in front of the American people. When you're eating poorly, you're in the hospitals more. When you're eating poorly, you're at the doctor's office more. When you're eating poorly, you're unhealthy and you're draining the economy in that respect. This shutdown has a lot to do with affordability of healthcare. Well, let's link that back to our food supply, right? We have people that are draining the healthcare system, but they're being fed cheap stuff. They're going to the little convenience store down the street. They're getting chips and soda on their SNAP. They're getting chips and soda on their food stamps. And then they end up unhealthy. Well, those are the people that aren't paying the medical bills. And so they're the ones that are draining the healthcare system. And so I applaud the administration when they try to fix some of the food stamp issues by saying, no, you can't buy candy. No, you can't buy chips. No, you can't buy soda with your food stamp benefits, because I think that's going to ultimately bring down the cost of healthcare. And the meat is the same way. If we start export or importing meat from other countries and we don't fix the entire supply chain and how they handle the meat packing industry, we're going to continue to get unhealthier as a country, and it's going to drain the economy. These are short-sighted solutions to, I guess, bolster the American public's bravado when it comes to the midterm elections. I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and the real problem, I think, underlying all of it is the concentration of power and wealth into the hands of a few. I mean, just look at how much money a Bezos and a Musk and a Zuckerberg
Sure.
have in relation to the rest of the economy. And we're basically starving the public of their fair share of the economy. And so they're like you said, they're eating bad food, which just exacerbates the whole problem. And with their healthcare problems. And I think back 50 years ago, the money that we were paying for a home mortgage back then was a pretty much equivalent to what you're paying now just for technology. So the technology has concentrated wealth, and it's also concentrated the ability of getting a message out. How do we even let the public know how much trouble the ranchers are in, and how much the price of beef makes actual sense compared to a bag of chips and a soda, and how much healthier it is. And these are prices that we're going to have to keep if we're going to sustain ranching in this country. And so the whole problem with concentration of power and wealth, I mean, it's been known for a very long time that the concentration of power and wealth is the greatest threat to any free society. Yeah. And it's never ever been worse. And just like what's the cost of renting a home these days, and BlackRock's ownership of all this housing, we just keep getting pressed harder and harder. I mean, why do five refugee families have to live in a one trailer house in Garden City, Kansas, and work 3 shifts at an IBP plant? I mean, they've not only leaned on the price of cattle and put ranchers out of business, but look how they've exploited their workers, all for the benefit of a few executives and some Wall Street investors. And they're draining the resources. I mean, just look how they're depleting the Ogallala Aquifer. These are costs we don't even acknowledge, that the Ogallala Aquifer is disappearing at a rapid rate. Yeah. And we aren't even calculating that into our cost of producing food until it's gone. And then what are we going to do? So we've just got to draw more attention to the wealth creator, the maker, the people who make things and grow things, make sure they're well taken care of, because they are the real basis of our economy. It's not the technology on your phone.
Absolutely not. No, what Mike is touching on is neo-feudalism, is what I call it. We are being consolidated by vulture capitalists, and they're extracting real wealth. We do not have free market capitalism. We have a controlled system in the hands of the few at the expense of the many. And I think these conversation is critically important, because the consumer and the voter is not aware of what Mike is discussing and sharing. Mike is dropping the truth right now, you guys. At the end of the day, when you go to the store and you try to buy beef, number one, you're not buying real beef. You're buying pink slime that's destroying your gut health, which is causing the disease that you're paying high healthcare prices for. You're bankrupting your neighbors. The rural America that's on the other side of your backyard is being depressed. We're also posing a national security issue by not providing food domestically, but by importing this, because if you don't have food sources, you are a conquerable people, right? I mean, I think historically, enemies and invaders would always cut off the supply chains in order to conquer a nation. And I'm not trying to become, conspiratorial here, but it does freak me out, Mike, when I see all the supply chains to the food coming into the United States being cut off domestically, and we're importing all of our food. So I think what you're doing is you're painting a big picture. And we, the people, need to take back our food systems, our food economies, and we need to take back, and we need to understand what exactly we're eating. Is that what you're saying?
Well, and we have to eliminate these middlemen that are pillaging and plundering. Yeah. And this is what the administration is not addressing. It's what Obama promised to address, and then, like Lena Khan said, chickened out. Mm-hmm. We've got to enforce antitrust laws. We have to bring fairness back to markets again. So but you can't do it without infrastructure. We've got 4 big meat packers that control 85% of the market. They've wiped out the competition. It's all in writing in the Vicious Circles, Mafia in the Marketplace book from 1979. It's all in there, but we've ignored it. I didn't even know about it until 10 years after it was written. But it's all in in the book, Vicious Circles.
Let's get a link to the Amazon. What is the title of the book?
Well, it's not.
not even
It's
out-
out of print.
It's out of print.
Yeah, but if you go to my blog, I've done quite a lot on Vicious Circles. So if
Plug your blog, please.
yeah, it's MikeCallicrate.com, and then just click on the Callicrate.
MikeCallicrate.com. That's 2 L's. It's right there on his shirt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think you also go back. You mentioned plunder, right? Legal plunder from the law, Francis Bastiat, back written in the 1700s, and so much of the problems that we see is because of government interventionism.
Yes.
And so when we talk about concentration of wealth, the problem is that there's the one group of people that take that and push that towards we need socialism, which is a further concentration of wealth. But the real problem is that we have monopolies because we've gotten away from a free market system. If we return to free market enterprise, we would actually solve a lot of the concentration of wealth problems, right? We'd solve a lot of these issues. But what we have is we have a couple large corporations that have the money to support a lobbying effort, that pay for legislators to get reelected, to have their fancy jobs in Washington, D.C., to make all this money, and they lobby to support the couple. They lobby to support the big corporations instead of all Americans. We've removed free market enterprise from this country. So I think that there's a conversation as to if we want to say, okay, the monopolization of many of these industries is one of the biggest killers of the American economy, the solution is not more government interventionism, in my opinion. But we have to start with let's come to the table and go, how did we get here? And is government really the solution to the problem? Because we just saw that government is definitely not the solution to the problem in this respect.
Well, you go back to the Ronald Reagan years and the Bork years when we talked about big is better and the government's the problem and we've got to get it out of the way and not enforce these important antitrust laws that were developed in around 1900. We had the Sherman Act, the Clayton Act, the Packers and Stockyards Act, and all of those important laws. Government does have a place. Government is the only one big enough to deal with a monopoly. So you got to enforce those laws, and they have not been enforced. And now we've gotten into monopoly positions in most of our industries. So how many car manufacturers do we have? How many military, industrial type operations are there? There's like 3 or 4 in every single industry because guess what? The government thought it was just easier to deal with 3 companies for their military needs. But we've got to get back to enforcing these laws. And I mean, Lena Khan was doing it. Lena Khan with the Federal Trade Commission, she's the one that wrote the article about Obama's game of chicken when he promised to go after monopoly power and then did not do it. And then she ends up as the Federal Trade Commissioner, the lead Federal Trade Commissioner, doing an amazing job. She blocked the Kroger Albertson Safeway merger. And she was part of the team that was at FTC when we stopped other really terrible mergers. One of the other mergers that we stopped was the Cisco U.S. Foods merger. And just last week, More Perfect Union came out with a really great video on why does all this food taste the same from Anchorage, Alaska to Florida to California. The same jalapeno popper is being put in vegetable oil to cook for restaurant guests in all these restaurants across America. Why does it all taste the same? Well, it's because it's Cisco. They're buying from Cisco.
Yeah. And
Cisco's sitting there knocking down almost 100% return on equity while everybody they deal with is going broke. This is a monopoly. In the time they spent with U.S. Foods trying to merge, they now become friends, and so now they're much, much more capable of cooperating. So the same jalapeno popper is being sold by U.S. Foods. It's being sold by Shamrock. It's being sold by all of the major distributors of food. And what happened to food culture? What happened to local food coming into these restaurants and being prepared by skilled chefs and making food interesting and healthy? No, we've gone to big companies that distribute nationally. It's like Smashburger. When they first came in to Denver and we're going to start up the company called Smashburger, I go to their location on Arapahoe Road. I get a tour of their restaurant by the guy that was running things. And he's very proud to show me around and show me how they make the burger and smash it on the grill, and then the service is fast, and the concept's pretty cool, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. So I asked the guy as I'm getting ready to leave, I said, would Smash Burger consider a high quality local source of ground beef for like the Colorado Smash Burgers? And he absolutely turned cold on me. He just shut down. He said, we get our beef from Stampede Meat Company in Chicago, who, by the way, had just recently had an E. coli recall. We get our ground beef from Stampede Meat Company in Chicago. It's delivered by Cisco, and we want 2,000 locations. That is what we have had to deal with. And so 2,000 locations all have the same thing.
Which is why we shouldn't be shopping at the chains and buying at Smash Burger and buying at McDonald's. We should be going to El Chapin at the corner of Town Center Drive and
El Chapin at the Fillmore location at 1228 East Fillmore. Absolutely, that's what we should be doing. But people are conditioned to be price shoppers. You win if you find the cheapest price. Well, what you've done is you just lost your whole economy and your community and your own wage.
There's a cost of convenience. Either you pay now or you pay later. I have this conversation with my wife every day. Why did you go all the way to Ranch Foods Direct on Town Center Drive when there's a King Soopers in my backyard? My answer is very simple. I could pay now and pay a little bit more and support my community and support my local rancher and my friend and give my children good health, or I can save a couple bucks today and destroy the gut health of my children. Aaron, my local community.
Aaron, we should tape that.
Let's do it.
You just nailed it. I mean,
it's on tape.
It's on tape.
Have it. We have it right here.
Don't you think we should save that? That's awesome. But I got to tell you, I feel sorry for the Argentine rancher. Mm-hmm. You're thinking, what? Those are competitors. Why would you feel sorry for them? Because they're selling to the same concentrated power. They're selling to the same big meat packing cartel that we are. And I've been to Argentina, spent time with them. And I got to tell you, people don't understand it, but Argentina is not Brazil. It's not Paraguay. They've got as good a cattle as we do. Mm-hmm. They come into the United States, they buy our genetics, they go down there, and they've got soil that far exceeds our soil health. They've got 8% organic matter on many of the farms on the Pampas, and they are producing amazing beef out of Argentina, mm-hmm. and it can definitely compete with ours. Mm-hmm. But I'm feeling for that rancher. And when I was down there touring those ranches, when I left, their message to me was, we just hope that we can keep from happening to Argentine ranching communities what's happened to the United States rancher. That a handful of big meat packers come in and just pillage and plunder and wipe out our industry. They were worried in 2016 about that threat coming to them. And I'm going to tell you, it's there now. It's there now. They are going to search, like I said, these big corporations search the world for the cheapest of everything, and they are going to press the price down to those Argentine ranchers and wipe out their food supply for the benefit of these middlemen who no one has had the courage to go after at the government level.
Yeah. So since nobody has any backbone, or what I call huevos rancheros, to be able to challenge these government power brokers, we just bypass them and build parallel systems and rebuild the local food economy. And that's why I love Mike and why we have him on the show, because Mike isn't waiting, nor is he just going to complain, but he's building, and he's built, and that's so respectable. So Mike, I want you to speak to what do we need to do at a local level, and what the person listening as a consumer who buys beef, how do they need to change their buying habits in order to reclaim our communities and reclaim our health from these oligopolies?
Well, most people don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Because I don't know of any other Ranch Foods Direct type operations. What we've done is we've gone all the way from the cow breeding to the bull and built our system all the way to Ranch Foods Direct. So we've got a complete production system that goes outside of that main system. The threat to us is price. The big guys can drop the price, and now you've got conglomerates that are in the food business. So you've got an Amazon, for example. you've got a Cargill, you got companies that are in lots of different industries, and so they can, or a Tyson, they're in all the meats, and so they can predatory price and put people like us out of business just with price, and they can last longer than we can. And so it's just so important to support your local makers, your local, and this is where, when I talk about what's the real honest solution for communities, I look at Lamar and I look at La Junta, Colorado. Safeway has announced they're pulling out, they're closing down those Safeway stores, and so all they're left with is super Walmarts in both communities of Lamar and La Junta. That is no choice. That is a food desert. I was in La Junta a few weeks ago, stopped at the gas station, and young lady in the gas station, I said, "Where's the Safeway store?" And she says, "Oh," she gave me the directions, and she said, "But there's no use going there. Their shelves are almost empty. They're going to be closing." And I said, "Really? What's going to be the impact on your community when that happens?" And she said, "It's going to be really terrible." She said, "Walmart is already raising their prices." And she said, "I just think it's time to leave." That is not what we want. We need people coming back to these rural communities, taking the pressure off of the growth of Colorado Springs and Denver and all of the Front Range and urban centers across the country. We need people going back to these rural communities and making stuff and growing things and getting their fair share of the economy. And so what I did is I talked to the folks there in La Junta, the mayor, some city councilmen, and a lot of the citizens of the area. They packed a meeting room at the college. And what we're talking about is, how could we create a maker market in La Junta where the people in it, the butcher, the baker, the cheese maker, the coffee roaster,
Candlestick maker,
all of them are there, but they're not there in a food hall.
Right.
They're there as an owner of the real estate, like in a condominium. So in 20 or 30 years, they have equity. And that was the real key to survival for our restaurant customers at Range Foods Direct, is whether they own their real estate or not. Because when COVID hit, the rent collectors came in and jacked the rent at the same time as their seats emptied out, and we closed down way too many of these independent restaurants. So let's let them be owners in this marketplace, fully supported by the city or the public, and then the people really own it. The people, not only the maker, but the citizens are able to really support something that benefits their community. And so they were very, very receptive to it. So let's just see what develops and what we can make happen. We should have had one in Colorado Springs years ago, but for some developer pushback, because they wanted to collect rents, not let people own things. And so I want to get back to like a maker-owned market type concept, replace these closed down Safeway stores, and then restrict Walmart's ability to extract.
Yes.
And go back to the enforcement of the Robinson-Patman Act, which says you can't show preferential treatment to your big guys. You've got to be fair. You got to sell to everyone at a price that, basically the same price in many cases. And so what we see happening is at Walmart, they're selling products for less than the independent grocer can actually buy them.
Right.
And so that's going to wipe everybody out.
Yeah, they're undercutting the market.
And there's
called vulture capitalism.
And there's laws in place that should prevent that. The Robinson-Patman Act should prevent that, but we haven't enforced it.
The Robinson-Patman Act the kryptonite to Walmart, essentially?
It is. It's totally. It came about, the Justice Department.
Okay.
But it came about, or the Federal Trade Commission, but it came about as a result of A&P monopolizing the grocery market back in the, what was it, the 30s and 40s.
That's the old Kroger company?
Yeah, well, they're gone now. Yeah, they do the equivalent of a Kroger
in the history book.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and that's why it was legislated, but it has not been enforced for a long time. But it's on the books.
Yeah, and I'm an optimist and I'm an idealist, I think, to my own detriment. And so I know right now, I mean, these are all incredibly great ideas, but right now you can order Callicrate beef online and have it shipped to your home. So could we begin to start stepping into some of these solutions by buying beef and meat directly from places like Ranch Foods Direct?
Right. It's really important to buy from people you can know, like your rancher. We process for other people too.
Right.
So we've probably got 100 different customers that we slaughter their animal at St. Francis, Kansas. They enter our supply chain where that carcass then travels to Colorado Springs where it gets cut up, packaged, and then they've got their own branded product that they can go out and sell. The thing that they've accomplished in doing that is they've cut out the unfair margins of the middlemen.
Right. Exactly.
And by dealing directly farm to consumer, we can heal a lot of what's wrong with rural America, but we have to do it on a scale that's sufficient to accomplish the healing. And this is where USDA can come in and help us again.
Yeah.
Stop standing on the neck of your small processors. Stop making their lives unlivable with your inspection policies and all of your distribution policies. And, we've got Representative Massey that talks about the Prime Act, which is going to be essentially eliminate inspection. But it's on a state level. We need to be able to cross state lines with product. And we've got to get a national distribution in order to make it work. Like our ranch at St. Francis, Kansas is on the Colorado border, but it's in Kansas. The Massey Prime Act would not allow me to sell into Colorado, which is where our urban centers are, where our people are that we can feed. And so there's a lot to be done, but USDA plays a big role. They've made it very, very difficult for small plants to operate.
Well, can we just get around government intervention by just buying directly from the source at this point?
For
now.
The problem is that these laws that come on the books, it's not just about the monopolization. It's about the laws that allow the monopolies to even exist, right? When you put in place all of these regulations that are so expensive that the small processor and the small production plant, regardless of industry, can't hit the standards that are required by law, which are mostly unnecessary standards, you promote a couple big corporations to take over the industry. It brings me back, and it reminds me of what Monsanto did when it came to GMOs, right? When it came to going after the farmers because seed had, been blown into their crops, and all of a sudden they have inspectors testing whether or not their crop is GMO, and oh no, they didn't buy the license for it, and they're going after these farmers. Like, that's how we had tons of corn farmers that weren't using GMO crop basically eliminated from the planet, going, you can no longer produce crop because now we have a stranglehold on you, right? We got rid of the seed cleaning industry where, basically every single year you have to buy seed from Monsanto, which is now owned by Bayer. Bayer bought Monsanto, the aspirin company, if I recall, right?
That's
I
correct.
think that's who currently owns it, which brings into play a whole nother question of why does Bayer why does not to be confused with the paint either. So don't know Bayer paint, but anyways, why do they own Monsanto? That's a really good question to ask, right? The same company that created AstroTurf. How many issues have we had with AstroTurf? Right, like this is a growing problem that we have a pharmaceutical company that now owns a company that basically is destroying everybody's health in so many different facets. But we have laws on the book that protect these large organizations that would have to be essentially removed before you went after them as a monopoly to keep the system up and running, because you have all these laws that basically prevent little small companies from succeeding. We live in the opposite of a free market society. We don't live in a free market economy. Everybody still thinks that America is this free economy. It's not.
No.
It's not a free
Well, and your
economy.
point about Monsanto is very well taken. What was the reason Monsanto was able to patent the GMO seeds? Well, we had a court case before the Supreme Court about the patenting of life.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
And Justice Thomas wrote a brief. First of all, they approved the patenting of life, said, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, we can patent God's life.
And then Justice Thomas, having been an attorney previously for Monsanto, did not even recuse himself. In fact, he wrote the brief approving the patenting of life. And that's what turned it all loose for Monsanto to control the seed industry in our country. And like you said, they started out putting the seed cleaners out of business. Percy Smeister is the guy you talk about who had the pollen drift that gave him a GMO crop when he never planted one. I mean, this is so unbelievable. The public doesn't have a clue. They don't understand just how all evolved. but you've explained it exactly correct. We do not have a free market economy. We've got a monopoly controlled economy, and they've allowed it to concentrate and consolidate, and we've not had an administration yet that's had the courage to stand up to it. But one of the things that we could do right now to help those small plants that are so disadvantaged with regulations, but their biggest problem is market access. How do you incorporate all the costs, pay your workers, pay for a fair price for livestock, process it, and sell it to the end consumer when you can't get market access and you're competing against an imported lean stolen from the ranchers that produced that in whatever country it came from, imported lean blended with big meat packer waste fat and pink slime, and it's in every food service company across the country. It's in every school, every rest home, every hospital, and the local guys like me cannot get access to that market because of price alone. And so now USDA Secretary Rollins came out yesterday with a plan. Why didn't her plan include government prioritizing purchasing of ground beef from small plants? The biggest challenge to a small beef plant is how do you sell the hamburger? I just described what they're up against in the competitive market. Why doesn't USDA, instead of buying from JBS, the criminals in our meatpacking industry, instead of buying from JBS, why don't they prioritize purchasing from small plants?
Why?
Because it's cheaper from JBS, and JBS gave the president $5 million for his inauguration, and within weeks got approved for listing their company's stock on the New York Stock Exchange.
Is the USDA
They are seeing preference from this government.
Is the USDA compromised and under the hands of the beef cartel?
Absolutely. I mean, look at Almanza. Al Almanza was our administrator for Food Safety Inspection Service. He was allowing JBS's rotten meat to come into our country and distributing it throughout commerce in this country while he was the administrator. At the same time, he was kicking the butt on these small plants, raising their costs of doing business, shutting them down for a missed stun or something that the big meat packers do all the time, basically trying to get rid of the competition for the benefit of the biggest meat packers. Yeah. So what happened was we started raising all kinds of hell about Almanza allowing this distribution of rotten meat from JBS out of Brazil. Well, that was in Trump's first term. Sonny Perdue came in as Secretary of Agriculture, and he said, look, Almanza, you got to quit this. We can't be distributing rotten meat into commerce in the United States. That our job is to protect the food supply, not compromise it.
Yeah.
So what did Almanza do? Talk about corruption.
Yeah.
He quit and went to work for JBS.
Oh, how sweet.
And he's working for him still today.
Of course. The revolving door, ladies and gentlemen, the K Street door. You go into private sector, you lobby, you're paid for, blackmailed, bribed politicians to sell out your nation, to sell out your children's future. And then when the heat gets hot in the kitchen, they go right back to daddy, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's that way throughout the government.
Yeah, we have a bought and paid for government, ladies and gentlemen. The wolves are in charge of the hen house. Mike and I have teamed up. CallicrateBeef.shop is going to be a site that you can go to that Mike is going to have very special offerings. Mike and I are working together on very special time-limited offers just so that if you're local here in Colorado Springs, you can try the amazing Callicrate beef for yourself. I've had it myself. My family only buys Callicrate beef right now. My children and my parents actually were at your event last weekend where they were doing the burgers and the beef, and they had the microgreens and they had the barbecue sauces. My mom's a carnivore. She loved the meat. My kids love it. There is an absolute difference. And I'm not saying this because Mike's sitting next to me. Sincerely, when you have Callicrate beef, you feel different. And I felt weird saying that because I was like, do I say that because I'm going to sound like hypey and weird? I sincerely, genuinely feel different. My body feels better. It's almost like there's this energy that I get after having your beef and after eating the meat.
Well, when I started selling meat 25 years ago, instead of live cattle, the packers didn't like what I was saying about them then, and they blackballed me. I ended up having to close my cattle operation because I couldn't sell. And so I decided, well, let's just get in the meat business. But the deal is, I'm going to produce the highest quality product I can possibly produce. which means you got to get rid of the performance-enhancing drugs, the implants, the steroids, the beta agonists, the whatever we're doing to make cattle grow faster. And that impacts meat quality. That impacts your ability to digest the meat. It reduces tenderness. It reduces the marbling, the fat, the digestibility of that product. And I've said for many, many years, we've got to stop using performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
But think about these Argentine ranchers. They're banned in Argentina. They don't use performance-enhancing drugs. So when you go to a restaurant in Buenos Aires and you order a steak, it might be the best steak you've ever had in a restaurant. But they have a different production system down there, and that favors quality. And so for Ranch Foods Direct, what would be the ultimate thing we could do? Well, first you get rid of the performance-enhancing drugs. You breed a Angus cow to a Wagyu bull, so we get extra more marbling. But what if you could slaughter that animal on site and it never got on a truck, and took that long ride to a slaughterhouse when it weighs 1,400 pounds? Well, that's what we do. We now have a USDA inspected facility on our ranch where our animals walk to slaughter. Whether the pigs or the cattle, they walk to the slaughter, and they don't experience the stress. That has a major impact on quality. Now, what if you could then age that carcass for at least a week for the food safety benefits of dry aging, eliminate the E. coli, the salmonella risk, and then maybe just put another week on it to get optimum tenderness and quality at the meat counter. That's what we do.
There it is.
That's it. That's the best you can make it.
That's the best you can make it, and you can take advantage of it right now. CallicrateBeef.shop. Scan the QR code on the screen. There's going to be plenty of deals. There's going to be opportunities that are limited time, that are pre-approved by Mike, just to introduce his high-quality beef to you, the consumer, either if you're local and you're going to Ranch Foods Direct in store, or if you're having this shipped out of state, wherever you are, you can get Callicrate beef. But scan the QR code, go to CallicrateBeef.shop, SHOP, and there will be special time-limited offers for you to be able to try this meat and this beef. Jason's biting at the bit. You have a question?
No, I here's what I want to point out, because I think it's a very interesting point that has to be made. So often we put like a Republican president in place, we elect Republican legislators, and we go, okay, they stand by what we would acknowledge as the founding documents, what we would acknowledge as the basis and the origin of our country, right? What makes our country so great? And we don't analyze them because we're too comfortable. And I think that's what's happening in this Trump administration, and why we're seeing some of the uprising as people are starting to go, whoa, 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 wait. We have resources at the click of a button. We have more information than we've ever had. And now we're starting to question and go, wait, why are you doing this? Does this really fit the founding principles of our country? And we have to look at it and go, okay, wait, just because it has an R next to his name doesn't mean they're standing up for free market economies, right? Just because they have a D in their name doesn't mean that they don't have something wise to say. And we have to look at it and go, both parties are not representing what this country was founded on. And so I think we need to put the microscope on our legislators, on our candidates a little bit closer, because I know that there's probably some things in this conversation that might turn off the hardcore Republican that's like, whoa, he just talked about concentration of wealth. That's definitely not conservative. Why is he on your show? Well, it is, because we're talking about the fact that our failure to acknowledge and allow everyday Americans to succeed is the opposite of a free market economy. So this idea of concentration of wealth is not talking about the need for socialism. It's talking about the need for reform and the need to come back to a economy that allows every single person to thrive, that allows every single person in this country to be successful. We don't have that.
An economy needs a lot of buyers and needs lots of sellers. We don't have that. We've got a handful of people in control. I went from, in St. Francis, Kansas in 1978, when I built my first cattle operation, I had 20 meat packers I could sell to. I was getting 70% of the consumer dollar back to the farm and ranch gate. today that has dropped. During COVID, it dropped to 27%. Now, how's a rancher going to make it on that? You talk about the ranching community is really a model of free market capitalism that is rock solid. I mean, these are the independent, hardworking. I can make it if I just get up early, go to bed late, and do things right. They have been betrayed with this meat packing monopoly picking their pockets for 40 years. And just to sort of wrap up the whole Argentine thing and the price of beef to the consumer, they have been pillaged for 40 years. Half of them are gone. And a lot of the kids don't want to come back. And so, we've got to focus on getting their fair share of that consumer dollar back to them. And we're not even close, even at the prices that consumers are paying today, and the price of cattle today, we're not even close to that 70% that we got in 1970 when the market was actually competitive. So we've got a lot of work to do. And man, I'm ready. I'm ready to help as many people as I possibly can figure out how to connect to the end consumer and get that farm and ranch gate income increase to where we can revive rural America and feed America again.
Yeah, election day isn't just on, is it November 11th, Mr.
November 4th
November 4th.
this year.
So election day isn't just November 4th of every day of every year.
The first Tuesday of every year is the first Tuesday of every even year is the typical election. Many municipalities have coordinated elections on odd years, and many states have elections on odd years, which would be November 4th.
You sure know how to steal my thunder.
But it's the first Tuesday of every year.
Here's where I was going with this. Every day is election day, because every day when you buy your food, you're voting for America First policy or not an America First policy. I imagine most of the people that are listening to this broadcast or watching this broadcast are America First type people. They think that America matters, that it's important, that we need to invest in our country. Just voting for Donald Trump once every 4 years doesn't solve the problem. What is going to contribute to solving this problem, what's going to allow you to be in the game, to not just watch as a spectator, but be an active participant in this game of reclaiming our country back, getting America back, getting our health back, is what are you buying? Are you buying pink slime at Walmart? Are you buying crap meat that was at a restaurant at Chili's, where that money is getting sucked out of the local economy and it's going to some Wall Street private equity firm out of New York City, and you're putting pink slime in your wife's health and your children's health, and now they're destroying their gut health, and they're getting diagnosed with diseases 5 to 10 years later. That's what you're getting when you're saving $1 or $2 at Walmart or at the chain restaurant. We need to change our buying habits. We need to vote with our dollar. We need to walk the walk. It's not just voting for a particular politician every couple of years. It's the decisions that we're making every single day, what we're buying. I am driving to Mike's location and I'm buying the meat. It's a little bit inconvenient, but I care about my kids' health. I care about my rural communities here in Colorado. I have property in the San Luis Valley. I go to Alamosa. I go to Fort Garland. I love these communities. I love these people. We cannot afford to lose these communities. We cannot afford to lose these people, because if we lose these people and we lose these communities, we lose our country. What's going to be the end game is a bunch of people packed in 15-minute cities, eating pink slime, destroying their health, and enriching Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and maybe 6 other people in this new neo-feudalistic new world order where we're going to be sick and we're going to be conquered. This country is based on freedom. It's based on the free market. It's based on what you just described, Mike, which is that hardworking rancher who wakes up early in the morning and does what he does because he knows that if he works hard and he tills the land, there's going to be a living to be had. He's going to be able to make a profit, and we're stealing that. And if that is stolen forever, we lose everything.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right. Well, and right now, if you go to Ranch Foods Direct, you not only get to purchase good, healthy meat, but we've got everything you can imagine that's locally produced.
There you go.
The sourdough boulangerie, bread is in there. We've got popcorn from Monument that's cooked in healthy oils. We've got beef tallow. We've got rendered pork fat. We got beef bacon. We've got dog food. We've got a raw dog food, a formula designed by Dr. Freely from from Falcon many years ago. He's retired now, but it's a combination of ground beef, heart, liver, kidney, bone meal. I mean, this is transforming health for pets.
So the dogs are eating right, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and we got bones. I mean, we've just got a lot of things. We've got produce from the Western Slope and the
I hear you got
Lewis
some good
Valley.
barbecue sauce.
We do.
Mickey's, is it called? Or?
Yeah,
Mickey.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. Shout out to Mickey Barbecue.
yeah. He works with us.
Okay.
He was in the kitchen
There you go.
yesterday making barbacoa or shredded beef, in other words.
And people love it. They say it should be illegal because they get addicted.
But look at the ingredients. They're clean and healthy and beneficial.
Well, it's not a biology lesson. It's like 3 things.
Yeah.
You know, and you go to the grocery store and it's like 57 things that 48 of them I can't even pronounce.
Right.
Like, what is going on right now?
And that's what's hammering our health.
Right. Jason,
I think it's really important to also note that it's not just federally that we have to worry about, that many of the stranglehold on our businesses is actually local, right? Your local health department, what they're doing, developers and what they're allowing to be developed in your cities and in your counties. All of that makes a huge difference in this free market economy too. So it's not just a federal issue. The stranglehold goes all the way back to your local municipality, all the way back to your local water board, right? All the way back to your local school district. All of the local municipalities put just as much stranglehold on American business than the federal government does. And that's going to impact, what happens locally in your community as well. And I think sometimes all we hear about is the federal stuff. And so we forget that these 3-letter bureaucratic organizations, or sometimes 5-letter bureaucratic organizations, are actually setting rules that are not law, but they have the ability to set rules that are strangleholding our economy.
Absolutely, Jason. That's a very, very good point. In Colorado Springs, the health department can go around and look at small business and how about sign approval? Even something as simple as sign approval.
Oh, that's the worst.
I mean, you get all the chains in. First of all, the chain comes into Colorado Springs, and the city will ask, okay, you're a new McDonald's. You're going to be over there on Fillmore Street. How about a stoplight with an arrow and a turn lane? Wouldn't that be cool? We could give you that. Hell, Walmart gets a double turn lane. They cater to these big outfits. And of course, the health department doesn't show up there, but they show up at the little guy who doesn't even have an entryway into his parking lot wide enough for 2 cars, and it's all busted up because they won't pour the new concrete. They're doing that down there at the chain store. I mean, they totally favor chains and franchises that extract wealth over local businesses that create wealth and keep it here.
You guys, we need to snap out of it. Stop going to Chili's. Stop going to TGI Friday. Stop going to McDonald's. Stop going to these fast food death traps that are poisoning your children and poisoning you. Go to the local restaurant. Go to Mike, rattle off, if you're in Colorado Springs, where are some restaurants that are buying Callicrate beef right now where we can go eat out, take our families, and eat healthy?
Well, I'll give you a few examples. Bread and Butter downtown carries Ranch Foods Direct.
Bread and Butter.
Yeah, Bread and Butter, that little market, cool little market. Mountain Mamas over on Uinta carries Ranch Foods Direct. We've got the Keg in Manitou, the Townhouse. If you look at our website, go to ranchfoodsdirect.com. We've got a list of people. In Denver, we've got a group of restaurants up there that have served our beef and sent their staff down to the ranch and given them tours. Linger, Root Down, and that group. So we don't have near the number of restaurants that we used to have. COVID wiped too many of them out.
They went out of business.
Yeah. But like Steve Trevelli has got, honestly, he might have the best cheesesteak sandwich for sure in this region.
Yeah.
And even further. But Steve is a longtime great customer of Ranch Foods Direct. But both Trevellis, Steve on Nevada and the Trevellis out on
Trevelli's cheesesteaks, good food. My first customer was Trevelli's. So yeah, shout out to Trevelli.
Is the other one near Doherty High School? Is that where it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Out of Barnes and
Barnes in Austin Bluffs.
That's it.
Yeah.
And great burgers and great tacos at Ranch Foods Direct location. You have 2 food trucks on site, El Chapin hamburgers, and is it also El Chapin tacos?
Yes,
Bolsa too?
that's correct. And cooking everything in beef tallow.
Right. El Chapin, if you want to call it that. I call it El Chapin.
El Chapin is
Yeah.
correct.
El Chapin.
but like Tito's Burritos.
Yes.
You know, Tito's had a brick and mortar that his dream place, and he got crossways with a landlord during COVID.
Yeah.
And he's now running his food trucks again. Amazing food, buys everything from us. So we've got, just go to our website. You're going to get, I hate to mention, I don't want to forget anybody.
Yeah, we're not there. Everyone's
Yeah.
on his website.
Yeah.
CallicrateBeef.shop is where you can find limited time offers and deals to try the Callicrate beef difference. Jason, do you want to send us off with any parting words?
Send us off. Thank you for joining us. This is Spiritual Insurgency and Faith, Family, Fitness, Freedom. Join us online, YouTube, and Rumble every week. God bless.